Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we are discussing the top 10 prospects for, yes, the Minnesota Wild. Now, the Wild's prospect pool is so interesting, and it has gone drastically better just over these past couple months. What the Wild managed to do in this year's 2020 NHL draft was nothing short of superb. Huge hats off to them and their management. While they have made some moves and trades that kind of left me scratching my head this offseason, one thing is for sure, it is their draft, and it was fantastic. They made all the right moves regarding the draft for the most part, in my opinion, and I really don't think they could have drawn up any better. They got lucky in certain instances, and then they definitely made strong picks in other instances. And you look at this Wild prospect pool, it is drastically different for the better going forward, and this is a team that has a lot more excitement and a lot more hope and optimism than they've really had in quite some time. So I hope nothing but the best for this Wild team going forward, but over these next 5 years, we're going to see some significant prospects that could very well be some of the best in the entire NHL once they blossom at that NHL level. So it's going to be so much fun talking about them, but make sure you stay until the end of this video, guys, to find out all the deets and all the information regarding the Minnesota Wild and their top 10 prospects. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. And just so you guys know, I will try to remember to have honorable mentions at the end of this video. I didn't get a chance to do it for my Ottawa Senators video that I did last, but I did put it in the comments just because I got too confused when it came to time because the video went on for like a half an hour. But nonetheless, here at number 10, we have centerman Nico Sturm. This is a very interesting prospect when you look at him because, one, Sturm is 25 years old, so he's one of the more seasoned prospects, if you will, that has definitely had a grind to hit close to, if not the NHL level at this point in time. Sturm, 25 years old, left-handed shot, 6'3", 206 pounds, was never drafted, was signed a couple years ago by the Minnesota Wild, and really has been strong. In 55 AHL games last year in the minors for the Wild, he had 32 points, including 12 goals and 20 assists, had a cup of coffee in the NHL in 6 games last season, including 2 points, and the year prior, however, in his final year in college, he had 45 points. So very impressive numbers there. And Nico Sturm, while he is on the verge of being past 25 and going into his later 20s, he's a guy that can be very controllable and very reliable in that bottom 6. I don't really see him having much of a ceiling past being a third line center, but he is a defensively responsible guy that you can have on your penalty kill and 5-on-5. He isn't going to wow you with his goal scoring, his playmaking, but he is strong with his overall game. He's a very balanced guy when I look at him just on the forefront things. So, like I said, there's nothing too flashy about him, but a reliable guy that could really be a huge part to the Minnesota Wild over these next 5+ years as they have the more coveted, the more grade A prospects develop into their own. You need guys like Nico Sturms of the world to really help round out a roster, and I think he will do just that in more of a bottom 6 role with the Minnesota Wild for the foreseeable future. So I really like Sturm. He's a guy that I'm kind of wondering what exactly his ceiling is going to be. I don't think it'll be too high, but who knows? He may go above expectations in my book, but we have yet to see exactly what his ceiling is going to be. But regardless, I'm excited to see what he's going to do at the NHL level because he surely is going to be competing for a spot to be an NHL mainstay next season. Next up at number 9, we have already a guy from the 2020 NHL draft class and Damon, the left-handed defenseman, 18-year-old, originally drafted in the 3rd round in this year of the 2020 NHL draft class. The 6', 194-pound defenseman has really been a solid one in the WHL. He has been injury plagued, especially over this past year in his draft eligible year, but nonetheless, in 28 games played in the WHL, he had 0 goals, 15 assists for 15 points. The year prior, however, he had 20 points. So Damon Hunt is a guy where you won't necessarily get too much offense out of him, but he's definitely of a higher level than many defensemen that you'll see as he grows into his game over these next couple years. Hunt is a guy that most would expect is just a very solid, well-rounded player in his position, similar to Nico Sturm in that aspect, where nothing too flashy. He does have some potential to possibly be gained some time on the power play, but nothing that you can really expect too much from him on the offensive front. He's a guy that at the NHL level, you can probably expect similar to what he's doing in juniors currently, around that 15 to 25 point range in points, and maybe he'll go beyond that. Who knows? But Hunt is a guy who really has some security and balance to his game. He's a strong transition game. He's obviously reliable in his own end, and is one that, when healthy, can be a key impact player as probably a bottom pairing, or at most that second line pairing of defense for the Minnesota Wild over these next couple years. It'll probably take him a bit to develop, obviously, only being 18 years of age currently. Defensemen, unless they're truly studs, definitely take their time to reach the NHL level, but there's a lot of reasons to be excited about Hunt, and he's one that I'm really curious to see. Can he obviously stay healthy, because he did deal with plenty of injuries in the past, and that'll probably be the biggest key to him. And I'm really wondering, if he wasn't injury plagued as much as he was over this past year, how much higher in the draft would he have gone, even with this draft class being so deep from the offensive standpoint. So again, Daemon Hunt is a guy that some could argue isn't even deserving of being in the top 10. I think there's a lot of potential here with him. I think he's definitely a reliable pick here at 9, I should say, and he's one that a lot of people should be paying close attention to over these next couple years to see how he rounds out his game, staying healthy hopefully, and really could show just exactly why the Minnesota Wild took him in that 3rd round, and could very well be a crucial part to this team as more of a depth defenseman, in my opinion. Again, I don't think he has first line potential by any means, but he's a guy that can be reliable for the Minnesota Wild going forward, and is going to make things very interesting with a lot of the other defensive prospects that the Minnesota Wild currently have that are going to be competing for a spot in this lineup over, say, the next 3 to 4 years. So a very interesting defenseman, a guy that I have some high hopes for, but I understand the argument to say not have him in your top 10, but here he cracks it at 9 for me. At number 8, we have another left-handed defenseman that was selected in the 2020 NHL draft, and that is Ryan O'Rourke. He landed in the 2nd round, however, so just a round higher than Daemon Hunt for the Minnesota Wild in this past year's draft class. And Ryan O'Rourke really isn't too far off from Daemon Hunt, in my personal opinion. He's another guy that you can really have in all situations, another very solid two-way defenseman where, again, he isn't overly flashy. You shouldn't expect necessarily too much from him on the offensive front, but he does have that potential to be commanding the power play as a quarterback possibly in the future, probably more than Daemon Hunt in my personal opinion, but that's just me. And in the OHL this past year, in 54 games played, he had 7 goals, 30 assists, for 37 points, and the year prior in the OHL he had 22 points. And when you look at Ryan O'Rourke as well, he's 6 foot, 178 pounds, 18 years old as well. Will probably take a couple years to hit the NHL level, but he's a guy that was much higher on certain draft boards. Some people even had him going in the 1st round, so he lands in the 2nd round for the Minnesota Wild. And the fact that he was potentially going to be a 1st round talent with how deep this the prospects were in this 2020 NHL draft class is telling of just how good he is, and why there's a lot of reasons to be excited about O'Rourke. Again, his transition game is really smooth. He can take up the puck with ease. He can command that power play as a quarterback if needed, but it's not something that they necessarily need to bank on for the Wild going forward. But with saying that as well, it will be interesting to see how this all pans out over the coming years, because when O'Rourke is assumably in the prime of his game, if you will, we won't see the kind of defense that we currently see with the Wild. So they're going to have a lot of interchangeable defensemen going down the road over these next 5 years, after the Brodins, the Dumbas, the Suitors of the world, and Spurgeon. Spurgeon might still be there, but some of these guys may very well be gone, especially with Suter, if they can, say, deal that contract eventually. And Dumba, he's been in trade rumors for a while, but Brodin and Spurgeon will probably stay for a bit given their contract situations. Regardless, this is a guy where there's a lot of reasons to be excited, as I mentioned. Another reliable guy, and you can't go wrong if you're the Minnesota Wild and just adding defensive depth with guys that are surely going to have that, that bottom pairing to possibly top pairing potential. I think Ryan O'Rourke has that potential. I think he has higher potential, in my personal opinion, than Daemon Hunt. That's why I have him here at 8. And it's just crazy because while this Minnesota Wild prospect pool is deep, you already have 2 guys here that were drafted in the 2020 NHL draft class. So it just goes to show why this draft class did so well for the Minnesota Wild. And if they didn't do well in this year's draft class, or if, say, the draft didn't even happen yet, we would be having such a different story regarding their top 10 prospects. But again, Ryan O'Rourke, a very solid two-way defenseman, not overly flashy, but he'll get it done. And I'll be curious to see what advancements he has in his game going forward. Who knows? Maybe he will take that next step with his offensive game. With number 7 of this prospect pool, we have left winger Adam Beckman, one of my favorite prospects out of this entire prospect pool for the Minnesota Wild, and many could argue is deserving of being higher on this list, and I don't blame them at all, but there's really one guy that stands out, and we will get to him, that really pushed guys like Beckman, among others, back in this ranking of the top 10. But Adam Beckman, originally drafted in the 3rd round in 2019 by the Minnesota Wild, the 19-year-old, he's 6'1", 174 he has a weight of 174 pounds, and this is a guy that is drastically improving in such a short period of time. He's really becoming almost upwards of an elite sniper. This guy has top 6 potential for the Minnesota Wild to drastically help this offense within the coming years, and I'm really ecstatic to see what he will do at the NHL level, hopefully sooner rather than later, even while being drafted just over a year ago. In the WHL, however, this past season, in 63 games played, get ready for this, he had 48 goals, 59 assists for 107 points. The year prior, he had 62 points, and that was really his first full year in the WHL, my memory serves me correct. So Beckman is a guy that is soaring through the rankings currently, and I'm interested to see where he will be ranked in, say, the top 100 prospects for the NHL. This guy has a lot of potential, one that has superb playmaking ability along with his wicked shot, and really can shoot that puck anywhere in the offensive zone. Whether it's that 1C, of course, being a left winger with that left-handed shot. If he's on the power play, then he could be in the right dot, possibly he'll be in the left dot. He'll be around making things happen in that offensive zone for sure, but even though he isn't necessarily overly big when it comes to being 6'1", as long as he continues to grow into his body some more, I think he's going to take full advantage of it with his one-on-one game. He has very strong skating and speed, and he is one that I'm honestly ecstatic to see at the NHL level. I think when it comes to the Wild and their long-term future, we're talking over these next 5+ years, Beckman is a guy that everyone needs to make sure that they are paying attention to. He doesn't get talked about much at all, and I don't know if that's just because he's a Minnesota Wild prospect or what have you, but keep your eyes on Adam Beckman probably more than the majority of the guys I'll be discussing with you today for the short-term future. There's a lot of potential behind this guy, and for good reason. He has a wicked shot, and if he can display that into the AHL, assuming that he won't just make that jump to the NHL right away, but we will see, then watch out, guys. If he stays consistent with this goal scoring, can continue to be a 30 to possibly even 40 goal scorer in the minor level at the AHL, and then when he hits the NHL level, sky truly looks like the limit for him. Watch out. He's a top 6 winger potential in my opinion, so make sure that you are following him over these next couple of years, no question. Next up, at number 6, we have one of the most interesting prospects out of this entire prospect pool for the Minnesota Wild, and Alexander Khovanov. This is a guy that really has an amazing skill set. We're talking when it comes to his pure potential and ceiling, he is definitely up there with the potential of being a top 6 center in the NHL. His skill set is superb. He has great hands. He has great playmaking ability. The only real issue with him, as we have seen this early in his career, has been his overall two-way game. He is a little bit more one-dimensional, if you will. He does struggle to find his game in the defensive zone and just keeping up the pace at times, but between advancing his skating and his overall two-way ability, as long as he can get that down, which I truly think he can, he's only 20 years of age, then the sky truly looks like the limit for a guy like Khovanov. He was originally drafted in the 3rd round back in 2018. He's 5'11", 196 pounds. The left-hand centerman, currently playing the KHL this year, we're talking about the 2020-2021 season, has played 7 games thus far with 0 points, and there's been some controversy with him because he's been gaining little to no playing time at times, and that definitely could be in part because of his actual play and the team that he's currently on in the KHL. So I haven't deep dived that too much, so if you have some more information that I do, let me know, but I don't really think it's too much cause for concern for a guy like Khovanov. I think he's still just getting started in his true professional career, and like I said, he has great raw skills. He's amazing with his hands. He has some great playmaking ability. It's now just a matter of really rounding out his game with the aspects that are going to take you from, say, being a fringe NHL player to more so minors to being that NHL mainstay in a top 6, a top 9. But when you look at his game, this past year, really in the 2019-2020 season, he had 99 points. In the KHL, including 32 goals and 67 assists, and I believe that was in the QMJHL. And then the year prior, he had 74 points. So really solid numbers there for Khovanov, and is one that has dominated at the junior level and really didn't have to worry about necessarily his full rounded out two-way game as much. Now that he is playing against men like in the KHL right now, for instance, even though he's only there, I believe he's just alone there. If he's trying to make that case to be in the NHL sooner than later, he needs to round out his game. He needs to work on that defense a little bit, but I think he can get it done. It's just really up to him, the commitment type thing, but he is a guy that has so much pure skills in his overall game and skill set, so be on the lookout for Khovanov. He's a guy that many people have in their top 5 and possibly even top 3, but for me, I have him here at top 6 just because of exactly what has happened over this past year with this prospect pool changing so much. Next up, we have at number 5 another one of my most favorite prospects, and not just this wild prospect pool, but we're talking out of the entire NHL, is Marat Khusnutdinov. And he is a guy where I didn't know nearly as much about him as I do now, really over these past couple months leading up to the 2020 NHL draft. And boy, is this kid something. Seriously, drafted in the second round as part of that trade with Luke Kunin and Nick Bonino, where at first I didn't like that trade for the Wild. I didn't understand why they would get rid of, at the time, I believe, a 22-year-old Luke Kunin, or Kunin, however you say his name, in return for Bonino, who's obviously on the latter part of his career, and bringing in that second round pick. But that turned out to be Khusnutdinov, so I love that for them, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, but he is a guy who had plenty first round potential and is one of those biggest steals in my opinion, even though he went fairly early in that second round. Marat, of course, is a guy where centerman left-handed. He's currently 18 years old. He's 5'9", 165 pounds, so he is understatured, which I definitely think went into him falling as far as he did in this second round. I believe he went 37th overall, but I could be wrong. Regardless, watch out for him playing in the MHL currently, because he also had a cup of coffee with the KHL and the VHL this year, but he's really been playing in the MHL, which isn't too big of a deal. In 10 games played thus far, he has 14 points, including 3 goals and 11 assists. He had 38 points in 44 MHL games really this past year in the 2019-2020 year, because the stats I just told you were 2020-2021. This guy has an amazing skill set as well. He's really a high flyer. He makes things happen every single time he gets in that offensive zone, and the difference between him and like some other guys I've talked about on this list is he has a decent to strong 200-foot game already. He's defensively responsible, and yet his playmaking ability is truly superb. He can shoot the puck, but his vision is one of the best in this prospect pool. He's just fantastic. He's a guy where the Wild really stole him, getting him where they did, and trading Luke Kunin in the process, and I think he surely has a higher ceiling than Luke ever will. And that's not a slight against him, but this guy is just that good. He has top 6 potential, no doubt in my mind. I will be curious to see how long he stays in Russia in the KHL, but hopefully he makes that jump and isn't say there until he's like Kaprizov, for instance, 23 years of age, but that may be the case. Regardless, however, the Minnesota Wild have such great center depth and from just this 2020 NHL draft class alone, and Marat is a huge part as to why. Watch out for him. He makes so many things happen in the offensive zone. He has elite hands. He has a great 200-foot game, just a solid centerman overall that displays some jaw-dropping abilities, and I've seen some highlight reel plays that he's been making as of late, playing for Team Russia currently in juniors, and wow, is he something. So watch his highlights, watch some of his games if you haven't. There's so much reasons to be excited behind this guy, and for good reason. And out of all the prospects I've discussed this far, this guy, in my opinion, has the highest ceiling, or at least one of. He's just that good, and I simply cannot say enough good things. He's so exciting to watch every single time. I'm so glad that I've really taken the opportunity to watch more on his game leading up to the draft over this past couple months, and I'm not going to be stopping anytime soon. Next up, at number 4, we have a guy that the Pittsburgh Penguins just tossed him away in that Jason Zucker trade, as we know, and defenseman Calen Addison. And Addison, what a job the Minnesota Wild were able to do when they traded Zucker away, because in return, they got a top 5 prospect, in my opinion, in Calen Addison. This is a guy, a really strong offensively minded defenseman, originally drafted in the second round by the Penguins in 2018. He's 5'10", 180 pounds, the right-handed defenseman in the WHL this past season. In 50 games played, had 10 goals, 42 assists for 52 points. The year prior, however, in the 2018-2019 season, he had 54 points. And the year prior, even before that, in the 2017-2018 year, guess what? He had 54 points, literally identical numbers. I believe he had both the same amount of goals and assists, with 11 goals apiece, and then whatever assists it was going to be to round out to 54 points. But he has really been remarkable, and while he did take slightly of a down, he definitely didn't take a downgrade. What am I saying? Regardless, this has been a guy where has been over a point per game, at least this past season, in just 50 games played in the WHL. He had a cup of coffee in the AHL, splitting time between the AHL affiliate for both the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Minnesota Wild. He played 3 games total and had 2 points. This is a guy that can really be that next big thing when it comes to a puck-moving defenseman for the Minnesota Wild. You need to be really excited about Calen, because at 20 years of age, you could see him competing for a roster spot next season, and for good reason. He has superb playmaking ability. He can command that power play as a quarterback, and you can be confident in him in doing so. His transition game is really strong. He's not overly flashy, per se, when it comes to his speed, for instance, at least from what I've seen, but he's a very smooth skater. He's very nimble, role and then in that offensive zone, whether it's the playmaking ability or getting that wicked shutoff, because this guy has been averaging at least 10 goals each year in the juniors for the past 3 years. He has the skill set. He is a guy who can really be a huge part in that top four, a top line pairing potential defenseman for the Minnesota Wild. Even with how deep they are, he's a guy that could really help push ones like Matt Dumba on the way out sooner rather than later because of just how good he is. If he can transition his game to really the men's level of playing either some more time in the AHL for a year or making that jump to the NHL, watch out. He's an underrated defenseman, doesn't get nearly enough credit he deserves. And if he does say make that jump to the NHL next year, I can surely see him making a run to being that Calder voting, putting up some strong points, but maybe being overshadowed like other ones. So keep an eye on Calen Addison. I really like him. The Penguins, I'm sure they're going to regret giving up a guy like him for Jason Zucker, who, while he isn't a bad winger at all, you guys love Zucker, obviously being Minnesota Wild fans, but what a trade that was, in my opinion, and what a win it was for the Minnesota Wild, because I believe they got not just Addison, but wasn't a first round pick part of that deal as well, but then the Penguins pushed that first round pick to be a 2021 first. I think that's the case. So what a deal for them. Calen Addison, book it, and offensively my defenseman that is surely going to be the next big thing for the Minnesota Wild and their blue line. Here we have at number 3, Matthew Boldy. This guy is awesome, just straight out fantastic. The 6'2", 192-pound left winger, 19 years old, was drafted, as we know, first round, I think 12th overall in 2019 by the Minnesota Wild. And he had a slow start to his time in college, playing for Boston College in his freshman year this past season. Really, I believe he only had 2 points, or at least 2 goals in his first 20-plus games. But then he really got rolling, having 7 goals, and I think a total of, what was it? He had a total of 22 points, and he had 7 goals in his final 9 games. It was something absurd, and he managed to be a first team, like part of the all-rookie team, I believe. Regardless, he has been fantastic for Boston College, and just throughout his development, this guy uses his size to his advantage every single time he's on the ice, and he's only getting better with age, truly. At the age of 19, the sky really looks like the limit for him. He had 43 points in 28 games in the USHL the year before he hit the college level, obviously. But Boldy is a guy where, assuming he's going to play at least another year in college, I don't believe he signed his ELC. If he did, then let me know, but I don't think that's been the case. Assuming he plays at least one more year in college, then he will hit the NHL level. I don't think he's going to play any time in the AHL. This guy is such a sound two-way winner. He has strong speed. He has strong playmaking ability. He's so versatile with his overall game. You can really rely on him to back check and forecheck just fine, if not superb, comparing to other players in that lineup in that top 6, top 9. He definitely has top 6 potential, even possibly top line potential. That's how good Matthew Boldy is. He's a guy where, again, is being overlooked. Another prospect where you don't hear much about, and it's unfortunate because he has a great skill set and is really more in a class of his own. I've touched on this in previous videos, but he's in a sense to a power forward to an extent where he is using his body to his advantage. He's not a complete power forward, but he's defensively responsible. He's probably going to go down. He has that potential to be one of the better two-way winners in all the NHL once he hits his prime. That's how good he is. So be on the lookout for Matthew Boldy. There's a lot of reasons to be excited about him. He can shoot the puck, obviously, any which way in that offensive zone. He can get in the front of the net, get in the nitty and gritty. He has more of that hard-nosed aspect of his game at times, and he's one that, as long as he continues to develop the way he is, as long as he continues to take advantage of his body, then who knows exactly what his ceiling is going to be at the NHL level. But I can assure you it is going to be a great one. So guys, watch out. Matthew Boldy is going to help balance out this Minnesota Wild team with their prospect pool, between not just having size like himself, but talent, but also having some more elite prospects that are just ahead of Matthew Boldy. And I think you have an idea as to who exactly they are. At number 2, we have my favorite prospect for the Minnesota Wild, the guy that I was vouching to really have that potential to be a top 4 pick in the 2020 NHL draft class. He falls all the way to 9 to the Minnesota Wild. That is centerman Marco Rossi. Rossi, however you say it. Playing for the Ottawa 67s, this guy has been nothing short of fantastic, and I don't mean that with a pun. Rossi did fall in this year's draft, however, really because of his size, and it really, quite frankly, ticks me off that we still have NHL teams really viewing players based on their size and not their statistics. It's not like Marco Rossi was dominant and the best player playing for the Ottawa 67s in juniors, not that matters or anything, it's not like we've learned from Alex DeBrincat, Johnny Gaudreau, and Braden Point, among others, even Jake Gensel to an extent. There's a lot of guys that have fallen in their drafts because of their size alone, and Rossi's another product of that. Even though he only fell to 9, trust me, he's going to be worth it. He's going to go down, in my opinion, as one of the best players that ever come out of this draft class, and that's saying a lot, given the potential and how deep it truly is. But Rossi, at 5'9", 187 pounds, the 19-year-old centerman, left-hand centerman, originally drafted 9th overall, as I mentioned, is currently playing in the Swiss League. He's alone there right now. He's had 1 game play, no points, but don't let that phase you. Things will change, and he's just alone there, just playing in there currently, and no biggie. The past year, however, in the OHL, 56 games played, just 39 goals, 81 assists, 120 points. Like, are you kidding me? The year prior, however, he had 65 points. So we're talking about having literally a double ×2 increase in his point production. That is remarkable. And I get it, Rossi is a little bit older comparing to some other prospects because he is 19 already, but don't let that phase you. There's a lot of reasons to be excited about Rossi. Seriously, he can have that impact as the next #1 center for the Minnesota Wild and could possibly go down as one of the best players to ever play in Minnesota if he does in fact go through his potential and stay there long term. Don't let his size phase you. This guy slows down the game. He takes up the puck. He loves leading by example and that going into the offensive zone. Once he brings in, he slows down the game. He's another guy out of this draft class that really looks like he's a couple steps ahead. He has superb playmaking ability. He has a wicked shot, whether it's with that that left-handed shot, shooting the puck in that right dot, or if he's just moving the puck around. He's, in a sense, very reminiscent of Patty Kane when it comes to just how superb his hands are. He's so elusive, can get around defensemen with ease, and he is truly the entire package through and through. There's no reason that Rossi should have fell all the way to he did at Minnesota Wild at number 9, and they lucked out tremendously in landing him there. I don't think they expected him to land there, so seriously, Minnesota Wild fans, watch out. You got yourself a first-line centerman, in my opinion. Maybe not right away, but definitely in a couple years at least, and is surely going to make an impact in the AHL as soon as next season. I don't see this guy touching a game in the AHL, truly. He's just that good. So be on the lookout, guys. Marco Rossi, an absolute stud, has all the tools to be one of the next big things in the AHL today and can really help lead by example with one other player, of course, from the Minnesota Wild to take them out of being mediocre for really the majority of the time of their franchise and help them push to be consistent playoff contenders and hopefully reach for a Stanley Cup over these next 5-10 years. So Marco Rossi, an absolute stud, and I cannot say enough good things about this man. At number 1, and this should come as a surprise to absolutely nobody, whether you're a Wild fan or just a hockey fan overall, and that is winger Kirill Kaprizov. This left winger, 23 years of age, was drafted in the 5th round back in 2015 by the Minnesota Wild, and he has turned out to be arguably the best player outside of North America until he signed his ELC this past offseason with the Minnesota Wild. Kaprizov, it's been for years now. When's he going to come over? Is he going to come over? So much stress, but for good reason. For the Minnesota Wild team that really hasn't had that guy, that leader, not just from a locker room standpoint, but leading by example on the ice in that offense. Kaprizov is that guy. He has all-star, superstar potential, truly, and is very reminiscent of many other guys coming into the NHL after being, say, in the KHL for a couple years. And you could even throw out that example as, I'm a Rangers fan, for instance, Artemi Panarin. I'm not saying that they're going to be the exact same player. That's definitely something high to live up to, but Kaprizov has all the potential to be fantastically dominant in the NHL as soon as next season. He's just that good. 5'10", 200 pounds even, 57 games in the KHL, playing for Moscow, I believe, had 33 goals, 29 assists for 62 points. The year prior, 51 points in 57 games. This guy has been dominant at every level he has played in his young career. When he played in the Olympics back in 2018, he was over a point per game. I think he had 9 points in 6 games. And then when he was also playing in juniors for Team Russia the year prior, I believe, back in 2017, I'm pretty sure that he had 12 points in 9 games. He's been ridiculous. Literally, at every level, he's been dominant. He has amazing playmaking ability. He's such a nimble and smooth skater. He has a fantastic transition game and truly can do it every which way for you in that offensive zone. He has the complete package. I know I've said that to an extent with a lot of these other players on this list, but there's no one better than Kirill Kaprizov here. At the age of 23, the sky is truly the limit with him to an extent that I simply cannot comprehend. This is a guy where he is going to make his best case to be the Calder winner next year, and it won't be surprising if he ends up being the Calder winner. The only exception to him saying not being the Calder winner is the Alexis Lafrenieres or the Quinn Byfields of the world, among some others. But nonetheless, he's going to do everything he possibly can to help the Minnesota Wild win every single game, night in and night out. And who knows, he could be that next big thing for them. We're talking better than Marian Gaborik good. And I know how good Gabby was between his time with the Wild and the Rangers as a Rangers fan. Kaprizov is really that next big thing in Minnesota, and you have every reason to be ecstatic for him. Seriously, he is the real deal. He has superstar potential, first line potential, even if it isn't, say, right away, just give it a year. But I think he's going to come into the NHL right away and just be simply dominant. He's a guy that is going to help the players around him, no question, with his playmaking ability and that wicked shot. Just imagine Kaprizov along with Marco Rossi and, I don't know, Kevin Fiala. Like, that would be absolutely disgusting if the Minnesota Wild would front load a line like that, and I would be here for it every single second of every single night that they play. So guys, be excited. Kirill Kaprizov is finally here at the NHL level, and watch out, NHL, because Kirill is the real deal. But that's going to conclude this video, guys. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree, disagree with my top 10 prospect list for the Minnesota Wild? Make sure to let me know in the comments as always, guys. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you again for 2,000 subscribers. It means a ton, guys. And now let's get a 3K, because I know we're going to get there sooner than later, because you guys are all amazing. So hit that like, hit that subscribe button if you enjoy this kind of hockey content. Share it with your friends. Reach it out. We're trying to get this thing extended regarding this channel, because it's truly just the beginning here, I assure you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what teams are you excited to see me talk about next regarding their top 10 prospects in their prospect pool? I had it up on my community tab earlier today regarding some other teams, but let me know your thoughts as to what teams you want to see me cover next within the coming days. But thank you all so much again, guys. Hit like, hit subscribe, check out previous videos regarding my Ottawa Senators video, regarding my breaking down other teams and their highest having the highest brightest futures in the NHL, the LA Kings being the latest. I've done the Ottawa Senators, the New York Rangers, Vancouver Canucks, Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm doing plenty of others too. A lot of great collabs still coming on the channel with fellow YouTubers, so be on the lookout for all that stuff. But thank you so much, guys. It means an absolute ton. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll be back real soon.